Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session on how students will lead the alternative protein revolution. My name is Amy Huang, and I'm the University Innovation Manager here at the Good Food Institute. We have quite a packed session on the agenda for today. I'm going to start things off by giving a brief presentation introducing the Alt Protein Project and our theory of change. And then we'll have a series of flash talks so you can hear directly from all of our brilliant student leaders as they recap their impact all around the world over the last year. And then we'll cap this session off with a brief panel featuring student voices from around the world. Since we have so much on the docket for this 50-minute session, we likely won't have time for audience Q&A, but you're always welcome to visit some of our student group expo booths and utilize the one-on-one networking functions. And of course, we're always happy to answer questions asynchronously. So feel free to pop your ideas and questions in the chat. Before we begin, please remember to honor our participation guidelines and to be kind and respectful to your fellow attendees. All right, I'm going to kick it off with my presentation on how students will lead the alternative protein revolution. Let's begin with what we know. There is a critical need for a robust science and training ecosystem. We know that when you take a look at the alternative protein value chain, there are two key catalysts underlying progress in our field, and that's research and development and workforce training, among others. Luckily, we have institutions that focus on precisely these things, right? Academic institutions are in many ways built to accelerate the pace of technological progress and to build a strong workforce. But these institutions aren't being leveraged fully by the alternative protein field for their field catalyzing potential. But universities can be engines for alternative protein research, education, and training. Just looking at some of these key pillars that are housed within the university ecosystem, from education, courses and majors that can train future scientists and engineers, to research, investigating some of the critical foundational questions that will advance the state of alternative protein science, to the commercialization of that research, the translation of that research to a commercial setting, and then the feedback loop that awareness contributes to this entire ecosystem. So the question then becomes, how can we shift institutional priorities if universities can be these engines for alternative protein research, education, and training? And so we had a hypothesis. In thinking about how to shift university priorities, we recognize that students are some of the most influential actors in the academic ecosystem. And they play a really pivotal role in building the alternative protein field. And so that's why we really started the Alt Protein Project, because these four pillars that we just talked about, awareness, education, research, innovation, when all of these things are housed in strong interdisciplinary communities, we can de-silo academic ecosystems, unite all of these individual gears into a robust network of interdisciplinary communities, and really serve as a force multiplier for any individual efforts. And in doing so, by housing all of these efforts under a global community, we're creating clear, easily identifiable streams of talent that can flow into the alternative protein field. So that's really the heart of the Alt Protein Project, and I'm excited to share more about what we've been up to for the past year. So over the past year, student groups focused on 5 primary objectives that align themselves really well with the pillars of the academic ecosystems that I outlined in the slides before. We had 10 groups focused on building courses, 10 focused on advancing open access research, 1 on stimulating innovation, 14 on generating the alternative protein discourse through awareness building activities, and 13 on just this community building component. And we made, as a collective community of 16 universities around the world, a remarkable first year of impact. We grew our small community to be 175 student leaders who advocated, either launched or secured faculty commitment for launching 13 alternative protein courses and modules. They influenced 17 research proposals, engaged 660 faculty members around the world, hosted 78 virtual events, and these events reached over 1,700 live attendees. So you can see that in just a short amount of time, this community has been able to make huge ripples across our ecosystem. You'll get the chance in a few moments to hear directly from our student leaders, but a few big highlights. Students sparked a movement at campuses around the world over this past year. You can see just some of the dozens of events that they planned here on this slide. And students also launched some of the very first alternative protein research projects their institutions had ever seen. You can see some of the highlights on this slide as well. And lastly, students launched some of the world's very first alternative protein courses and modules. You'll hear more in detail in the presentations that follow, but they did all of these remarkable field-changing activities in a strong community of passionate, mission-aligned individuals. So what have we learned over this past year of experimentation? What we've really learned is that students are indomitable forces for change. This past year has shown us that students are fearless, crucial catalysts for catapulting change in academic ecosystems. And this kind of ecosystem level change often unfolds over a really long time horizon, incrementally at first, and then altogether paradigm shifting. And we really think after this year of collecting experimental data, we really believe that students are at the center of ushering in the seismic shifts that will bring us to the world we're all collectively envisioning together. So I wanted to give a big thank you to our 16 student groups, to all of the members of our community who have made this work possible. We've made some remarkable things happen this year, and it really is all thanks to you. If those of you in the audience are interested in transforming your university and potentially starting a chapter of the Alt Protein Project, fill out the interest form at gfi.org/thealtproteinproject. But do keep in mind that we're currently pausing program expansion in 2021 to focus on building scalable resources to support student movement builders around the world. And we will be in touch once you fill out that form, when we're ready to invite new student groups into our community. All right, thank you so much, everyone. That brings us to the end of my presentation. And now for the good stuff. Up next, we have our student group Flash Talks. I'd like to welcome our very first student speaker, Julie Martin, to the stage. Julie, it's great to see you here. Julie was one of the co-founders of the Wageningen Alt Protein Project. And as a team, they have done some truly awe-inspiring things over the last year. I will let her tell you all about it. So Julie, please do feel free to take it away.
All right, so thanks, Amy. Thank you, everyone here today. Well, my name is Julie. I'm a food tech master candidate at Wageningen University. I'm also a co-founder of the Wageningen Alternative Protein Project, and I would like to tell you a little bit about what we've done over the past year and what we have in store for the next year. So please, the next slide. Wageningen University has been consistently ranked as Europe's leading university in food technology and ranks among the world's top universities in biotechnology and agricultural sciences, as perhaps many of you know. It has consolidated key research partnerships with dozens of global food companies and attracts world-class experts and thousands of students every year to the heart of the Food Valley in the Netherlands. Particularly, Wageningen is a pioneer in plant protein research and counts with top-notch projects in recombinant proteins, making it a major global hub in alternative protein innovation, which I guess is also in the ears of most people today. Next slide, please. So despite what happens is that despite having all of this necessary expertise and all of these resources and really being a powerhouse of research, Wageningen is not really yet at the forefront of cellular agriculture, an area in which, well, there's not a defined program, neither in education or research yet. Also, we felt, and many people felt, that despite being a powerhouse on plant protein research and soon on precision fermentation, many students were really not aware of this happening. And overall, there was a very low student involvement, limited to the student representatives, like in student parties and program committees, really showing that there was no ownership and no co-creating opportunities of students regarding program building. And so the Wageningen Alternative Protein Project was really formed in the summer of 2020 to fill in these gaps. And it is now composed by our amazing team, which is 5 graduate students. So Shan and I from food technology, Aditya, Anna, and Nike from biotechnology. And we're also supported by 2 wonderful committee members, also graduate students, Jana from plant sciences and Bernard from biotechnology. We all participate pro bono and on the side the world-class research happening at Wageningen on plant protein and stimulate new educational research opportunities, especially in cellular agriculture. Next slide, please. So basically, over this year, one of the things that has, one of our major accomplishments has been the podcast. So Shan, this is an original project of Shan. Shan created a podcast series in which she managed to interview 5 PhD candidates to really broadcast their work. And this was very successful. It counts right now with over 400 downloads. Next slide. Could we get the next slide? Oh, yes. We also ran before the summer a trial edition of the Alternative Protein Journal Club, the European Alternative Protein Journal Club. In this edition, we invited Andrew Stout from Tufts University, and it was really a great success, and we expect to be also doing this after the summer from October onwards. Next slide. We also participated, so we also had a participation in entrepreneurial challenges, trying to showcase that cellular agriculture is really interesting for not only industry, but also for students and academics, and that there's a way forward in entrepreneurship that way. Next slide. And we also ran a few successful events online. We had 5 online events this year, and we had quite a lot of student involvement, and we hope to be continuing this next year. Now, what are the things that we would like to do over the course of the coming year? Could you pass 2 slides, please? Yes. So first of all, we're very excited for doing some offline community building. As you can see in some pictures here, we already had the chance to present the project to over 200 students, and this was very exciting. We are planning already our first in-person event for this month. We're very excited for that now that this is possible. Could we please pass to the next slide? Yeah, we're also, one of our most interesting projects is that we are trying to push for research. We have in store a digital tool for planning study guides and helping students really tailor their study programs to really going into alternative protein. We are creating a chain of mentoring to help students propose novel projects to faculty and apply to grants and funds. And we're also trying to give more outreach to students for opportunities in internships and jobs in alternative protein. And finally, on the last slide, we are really steering for educational opportunities. We are going to be continuing to monitor student needs for alternative protein courses to surveys. We support the creation and execution of courses, which we are continuing to do from last year. We're involved in helping in a plant protein functionality course that might become a minor. But the most important for this year and the most exciting is that we're being a support in the National Growth Fund project, which intends to create an ecosystem of cellular agriculture research in the university, which is very exciting for Wageningen University. And with this, I would like to give a close to my talk. And with the next slide, I would like to give a close to my talk and thank everybody today for being here. I think I ran a little bit on the time. So thank you very much.
You did a fantastic job. Thank you so much, Julie. The efforts that you guys have underway at the Wageningen Alt Protein Project are truly game-changing, and thank you for inspiring efforts for other student groups around the world. All right, next up we have Michael Byun from the Stanford Alt Protein Project. Michael, feel free to take it away.
Hi, thanks Amy, and thanks Julie for a great talk. Always super exciting to hear what's going on at Wageningen. Yeah, I'm Michael Byun. I'm an undergrad at Stanford, and I am the founder and co-president of the Stanford Alt Protein Project. Next slide. First, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on why I personally choose to work on alternative protein and why I think Stanford is an unusually good place to do so. My sort of like personal path towards alt protein has been motivated by a philosophy called effective altruism, which is about finding especially high impact opportunities to help the world. And that can include things like, things like alternative protein, which seems like an unusually high leverage area to improve human, animal, and planetary health and well-being. As for why Stanford is a good place to work on alt protein research, it's really strong across a number of disciplines, both grad and undergrad. It's really a global research leader and has particular strengths in bioengineering and life sciences, which position it well to work on cultivated meat. And it also has a sort of entrepreneurial spirit, a lot of students interested in entrepreneurship, and is situated in Silicon Valley. Next slide. Yeah, so a little bit of context on our club. We're a little bit newer as the batch of alt protein projects go. We were founded in December 2020. And so we've really only had 6 months of an academic year in existence to do what we've been able to do. And in those 6 months, we've focused on research, education, and awareness. But despite the short time frame, I think we've done some really cool things that I'm really excited about. And I'm just going to highlight a few of those things here. So the first thing I want to highlight is a class called Rethinking Meat that we ran, which was an inter-level seminar on alternative proteins. We had about 100 students enrolled or auditing the class, and 10 different modules focusing on different aspects of alternative protein, for example, the science of cultivated meat or environmental impacts of alternative protein. The course was super well received. We received a lot of great feedback, and it seems like it was getting a lot of people really excited about alternative protein and even getting some people to consider careers in the space. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah, another thing that we've been working on over the past year has been outreach to professors for a number of things. One of the most exciting sort of professor outreach things that we've done, which overlaps with some of the lovely people that you see here, are that 3 professors, or 2 of whom are pictured, expressed interest in planning to apply to a GFI grant for cultivated meat research, which we think is really cool, especially because none of them had considered cultivated meat research, nor heard of the Good Food Institute before. We've also worked with some professors on the Rethinking Meat introductory seminar, a webinar for the EPA, connecting students with research opportunities, and funding for some various projects and initiatives that we're running. Thirdly, we've been running a bunch of awareness-raising events. We've had speaker events with companies like Impossible and Corn and the Shanghai-based startup Zero. We've had cooking demos with chefs like Spike Mendelssohn and Ahmed Raz. And one particularly successful event that we had was a live tasting and panel Q&A. You can see me there in the top right over Zoom with Wild Type. We had over 200 attendees. It was an event co-hosted with GFI, the MIT Cellular Agriculture Club, and the MIT Food and Ag Club. And based on the responses in the chat, it seems like people were getting really excited about the future of seafood, which is really cool to see. Yeah, so over this coming year, as it's getting started, we're hoping to continue with those 3 things that I mentioned: rethinking meat, more professor outreach, and more awareness-raising events. We're also hoping to expand a little bit. We're working on planning a journal club focused on alternative protein, hopefully to engage more grad students. And we're also trying to sponsor a challenge in a biohackathon that's happening on campus in the winter. Overall, I'm super impressed and excited by everything that the team at Stanford has been able to do. I've been very pleasantly surprised by the sheer amount of interest that we've just gotten from both professors and students and everyone else. And I'm really excited to see everything that we're going to be able to do over the next year. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael, and the entire Stanford Alt Protein Project team. It's honestly been extraordinary, like jaw-droppingly, mind-blowingly awesome to see what has been possible to accomplish in just 6 short months. So thank you all for your tireless efforts in bringing Stanford, leveraging some of their existing academic and research strengths to really push alternative proteins forward. Next up, we have Sophia Retchin from the Chapel Hill Alt Protein Project. Sophia, whenever you're ready, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophia Retchin, and I'm a senior undergrad at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, majoring in business administration and environmental studies. And I'm a co-founder at the Chapel Hill Alt Protein Project. The Chapel Hill Alt Protein Project is an alt protein ecosystem builder for the Research Triangle area. The Research Triangle gets its name from the Research Triangle Park, which is the US's largest research park, as well as 3 Tier 1 research universities, Duke, NC State, and UNC, all located only minutes apart from each other and in the shape of a triangle, as you can see on the map on the screen. We truly believe that this region is primed for alt protein leadership, and we're facilitating the growth of this field by developing courses at UNC and influencing surrounding universities to start courses, by building community and organizing events. North Carolina is an ideal place for an emerging alt protein hub for 3 main reasons. As I mentioned earlier, we have top-tier research universities and 2 land-grant universities, all located only minutes apart, cultivating a great talent pipeline for the industry. Secondly, we already have a robust science and tech ecosystem, specifically within the ag tech and life science fields, both closely related to alt protein, and we have a thriving startup community. Lastly, we're the 2nd largest state in food and beverage manufacturing, and our economy is deeply ingrained in agriculture. Next slide, please. Thanks. One of our greatest accomplishments is developing one of the world's first alt protein courses. We created the Cellular Agriculture Revolution course, which is launching in our biology department this upcoming spring, and is being taught by 2 School of Medicine professors, as well as alt protein stakeholders located in the area. We also facilitated the launch of the first alt protein university offered short course in the state at our neighboring university, NC State. Next slide, please. In coordination with the Brown and Johns Hopkins alt protein projects, we launched an online alt protein introductory course last summer for students that are newer to the alt protein field and engaged students from over 25 universities. Next slide. Lastly, we're actively building an alt protein community in North Carolina. Last year, we hosted 3 North Carolina alt protein networking meetups for over 35 alt protein stakeholders in the area, including the companies and organizations listed on the right of the screen. We hosted alt protein webinars, and we recently developed a multi-university affiliate group at the NC Biotechnology Center to expand our mission beyond UNC, have more influence in all of the universities in the area, and better serve the greater North Carolina community. In the long term, we envision an alt protein minor at UNC, and we are currently propelling for this goal by recruiting professors to teach a chemistry plant protein course and incorporating alt protein modules and guest speakers into existing courses. We really envision the Triangle area as a world leader in alt protein. And in order to push forward this goal, we're educating students about alt protein careers. And in coordination with the new North Carolina Biotechnology Center alt protein group, we're planning a North Carolina alt protein conference for spring 2022. Next slide, please. I'm so proud of everything that my team's accomplished over the past year, and I'm really excited to see all the progress that happens this year and after I graduate. And if you're interested in learning more, please check out our expo booth.
Amazing job, Sophia. Thank you so much for taking us through the incredible things that the Chapel Hill Alt Protein Project has been up to over this past year. It's been such a joy to work with this crew, truly, and the ripple effects you guys are having, not just within your university ecosystem, but across the entire Research Triangle and even the entire state of North Carolina, has really been a testament to the power that communities of students can have in rallying, powerful stakeholders across a region. So thank you so much for everything you've done. Next up, we have Mila from the Biosense Alt Protein Project. Welcome, Mila. So excited to hear about what your group has been up to.
Thank you, Amy. So hello, everyone. My name is Mila Dijsalov, and I'm a PhD student of biochemistry and also a junior researcher at the Biosense Institute, University of Novi Sad, Serbia, as well as one of the co-founders of the Biosense Alternative Protein Project student group. Next slide, please. So today I'm here in front of the student group formed at the Biosense and also supported by GFI to present to you who we are, what we do to raise awareness about alternative proteins. Next slide, please. So our dedicated team consists of 3 PhD students with different backgrounds. We have 1 postdoc and 2 group advisors, where one of them is actually a GFI grantee, Dr. Ivana Gajansky. Next slide, please. So we started with group activities in December 2020. And apart from the 3 main objectives listed here, the next slide, please. The next slide actually shows how we were focused on the following actions, such as education, research, events, organization, and dissemination and networking. The next slide, please. So in order to introduce this topic to students, we encourage them to go through the course given by GFI, which was attended by 21 students. So this course was followed by organization in small study groups and discussion, and also it was followed by organization of journal clubs when students analyzed research papers related to each lesson. Next slide, please. Okay, in the past school year, we were also focused on the organization of different types of online events, where the very first was, next picture, yeah. The very first was the kickoff event of our student group. This event was followed by up to 50 attendees who were coming from different levels of education and expertise, and it was promoted on social media accounts of different faculties and also on the official website of the University of Novi Sad itself. The next picture. Yeah, but before that, I have also to say that this event, kickoff event, after this, we received the largest number of applications for registration to our student group, and we have attracted a great deal of attention from the domestic media. So in this picture, you're looking at our first online lecture organized by our student group, which was given by Darko Mandic, a CEO in Mila company, which is engaged in the production of honey without bees. On the next photo, you can see the second online lecture we organized, which was given by Dr. Boštjan Vihar from the IRNAST Institute. And also the next picture, you can see that as a group, we held an invited lecture on the topic of the alternative proteins within the webinar, which was organized by one research group from the Faculty of Technology. On the next slide, please. Yeah. We are aiming to connect and stimulate various research groups to start to think about using their knowledge and expertise for future alternative protein research projects. These projects would be great opportunities for students to do their master or PhD thesis, and maybe to do in the field of something, maybe job in the field of alternative proteins. And the next slide shows you that we are strongly promoting networking among other student groups in order to exchange ideas, as well as emphasizing dissemination of our work using social media, YouTube, website, etc. And the next slide, please, actually show what is ahead. So I would like to stress out our plans for the next school year, which involves organization of multidisciplinary conference about alternative proteins. So the idea here is to allow connection between researchers with different expertise, but interested in to implement their knowledge in the field of AP. And in addition, we will be working on organization of workshop about scientific communication. These activities will overlap with the ones within the granted Commonwealth project we got as a student group. And this project is actually supported by the Serbian Center for the Promotion of Science. So this would be that by my side for today, and thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mila, and all of the other student presenters. It's just really been extraordinary to hear what you've been able to accomplish together. All right, now I'd love to invite our student panelists to come on stage as we move along to the panel portion of today's session. We have assembled a really exciting group of Alt Protein Project student leaders with different backgrounds, stories, perspectives to help illuminate the roadmap forward for developing strong alternative protein ecosystems around the world. Nick, we're getting a bit of feedback from you. Awesome, thank you. So I'm really excited about the discussion that will unfold over the next 20 minutes. Just a reminder to our panelists to please mute your mics if you're not speaking so that we can make sure this is as sonically joyful of an experience as possible. Alrighty, welcome Varsha, Lisa, Aditya, and Nick. Why don't we start off with a quick round robin of introductions. Varsha, why don't you kick us off here? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you study, and what motivated you to start a chapter of the Alt Protein Project.
Yeah, hi, my name is Varsha. I am a PhD candidate in chemical engineering at the University of Colorado, Boulder. And I got interested in cell ag a little bit later on in my PhD than maybe some of my colleagues. So my research is really focused on tissue engineering and biomedical applications of hydrogels. But that was really part of the reason that I joined their very nascent Alt Protein project at Boulder. So I was really interested in building a space where people could understand how their interests and skills would align with what the needs of the Alt Protein industry and the research opportunities that were out there to help them make some of these connections and help students transition into this field.
Thank you, Varsha. Aditya, why don't you go next?
Thanks, Amy. Hello, everyone. My name is Aditya. I'm a master student of biotechnology at Wageningen University in the Netherlands with a focus in systems biology. I became interested in alternative proteins and particularly cellular agriculture a couple of years ago because, it really lies at the center of a lot of the most important problems of our time. And like Julie mentioned in her presentation, we all sort of noticed that Wageningen had relatively little representation of cell ag, particularly in the education and research being done here. So we decided to co-found the Alt Protein project here together to try to change that.
Thank you so much, Aditya. Let's hop over to Germany with Lisa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa, and I'm a stipend recipient from the Elsa Neumann Foundation, who allow me to do a PhD project at the TU Berlin about cultured meat. There I'm working on scaffolding, creating food-grade scaffolds. And I also co-founded the Berlin Alt Protein Project, a little bit due to the same reason as the Wageningen project, I just realized how hard it was as a student to get into this field of cultured meat. In Germany, there was very little information about cultured meat, how to get funding and everything. So I thought, okay, why not found a group that would help all students to have an easier introduction and also to learn from each other and create classes so that we can learn about alternative proteins, because the classes are lacking. And I think it has been a very great experience for everyone so far.
Thanks, Lisa. Nick?
Thanks, Amy. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Johnson. I'm the president of the UC Davis Alternative Protein Project. I'm a PhD student here in biomedical engineering, and my research focuses on also scaffolding for cultivated meat, working with bioprinting skeletal muscle tissue. And so I want to just echo kind of what all of these other leaders have talked about in terms of, why the Alt Protein Project. It's right now, it's very difficult for students to get involved. I have a lot of people reaching out to me asking, how to get involved in the industry, what are the right paths to follow, what majors you need, stuff like that. And I think all of us wanted to kind of build that community, but also build a pathway for workforce development and help students figure out how to get involved in this industry and help them make the impact that they're going to go on and make.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick. What I think you really underscored in your response is that there's a good amount of work to be done in terms of actually building alt protein infrastructure, training opportunities, research opportunities on university campuses. So we're up against a lot here, right? There's a good amount of time pressure in terms of how quickly we need to advance alternative proteins in order to really build the world we know is possible. So my first question for you, Nick, is what university ecosystems need to look like, say, by 2030 in order for the alt protein field to be where it ought to be?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a challenging question with the alternative protein space changing so rapidly, and especially over the next decade here. But I would really love to see, just more actual coursework focused on plant-based proteins, precision fermentation, cultivated meat, and like some of our other flash talkers have been speaking about, like modules and regular courses, like how can we build awareness and create systems that allow people to actually get their degree in this field so that they have the tools that they need so that they can step out of the university and start making impact in companies.
Thanks, Nick. Do any of our panelists want to weigh in here?
Yeah, actually, I think that it's like the technical side of it, I think is 100% needs to be developed. And I think that a lot of us have really focused on that. But I think especially as our club has evolved and included people in environmental studies and in business, I think that it requires a lot of different types of thinking and a diverse amount of people with different expertise to really get this to the future that we all envision. And I think that that's an amazing place for a university to step in to really cultivate thinking across different fields, including policymakers and journalists and political scientists and economists. And I think especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's been really clear that just the creation of a literal life-saving technology does not guarantee adoption. And I think there's a really clear space for alt protein projects and the university system in general to help kind of foster that forward.
Yeah, can I jump in and just add on to something? Yeah, so that's a super critical point, Varsha, about kind of the diversity that we need in this field. And we actually had our first course today. The Davis Alt Protein Project is also, we've developed a course on alternative proteins. And it was really cool to see that, like we had maybe 10 different fields represented and like 2 people from each field. So it was ranging from sustainable agriculture to economics to mechanical and chemical engineering to food science to, like we were just all over the place with the different fields that we had, and I think that's going to be critical for continued development.
Yeah, that's actually the same we experienced also. It's just so interesting, and that's also what makes this field so great, that everyone has something to share, and it's such a big problem we need to solve. So we really need this, like every different angles from every subject. So I can just agree.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I couldn't agree more that this is a vast multidisciplinary undertaking and that we need to create formal and informal pathways for as diverse a community of people as possible. So thank you so much for prioritizing that kind of, intellectual diversity. I want to shift now to asking a question for Aditya. In what ways would you like to see the alternative protein industry support the new wave of students really excited about advancing alt proteins through research and innovation? So in other words, what sorts of obstacles would you like to see resolved for future generations of students?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. So I think one of the things that would potentially be very interesting is if the industry could engage more directly with students and really leverage the capabilities of student researchers. I think there's probably a lot of problems in the field which are important, but too small either for a startup to prioritize them or to sort of set up a lab at a university to study specifically that problem. And I think their student researchers have a lot of things to offer, because I think a lot of them could potentially make significant headway on these problems. And then at the same time, you're also training the next generation of workers essentially for these companies. And you're also creating an open source knowledge base, which I think is crucial. We've seen, by analogy with software, that having a sort of open source environment and an open source set of knowledge just adds to all of the companies. It doesn't subtract from sort of the more private end of things. So sort of creating this market where companies can engage directly with students and set up projects without having to go through the whole bureaucratic process of setting up a university research lab would be very powerful, I think.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea, Aditya. Definitely seems like there needs to be more interfacing between the academic sphere and the industry players here. And I agree that students can be really pivotal in closing some of those bigger research gaps. Any other panelists want to weigh in on this question? What sorts of obstacles would you like to see resolved for future generations of students?
I would also agree about the labs and the projects, that especially in Germany, for example, we need more funding. We need, for example, Germany to also be more open towards cultured meat. I feel like in the past, especially what was about the funding, there was a lot of skepsis. Now it's shifting, so that's great to see. But I also, since I started my PhD and I'm starting to take in bachelor and master students, it's really great to see the feedback. Like, they're so interested. And if you kind of catch this enthusiasm, I think really great things come out of it. But some also might get scared off because it's just so complicated at this moment. And yeah, that's also why the student groups are very good, because this just motivates so much to continue. To see that other students are also fighting to just get it out there that we need cultured meat, we need alternatives, and I think that's really great to, just take everyone with us, kind of.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. I think that's a really good point. This is a field that doesn't have very well-defined pathways yet, right? And so because what we're trying to do is rare and challenging, I think student groups and communities can do a lot to boost morale and make it so that everyone knows, we can move in this, we can lift this tide together. I want to shift our discussion a little bit I think what's really special about this group is that we have groups who've started along, different points of in the past year. Varsha, the Boulder alt protein project, was one of the first groups that we started and experimented with. What was your thinking at the very beginning of starting this project? And I'm curious how it's evolved in the last year and a half or so.
Yeah, I guess a couple points about that. So I think when we first started, so we were co-founded by 2 chemical engineers, and then our leadership team was 3 chemical engineers. And then we kind of incorporated business students and an environmental scientist, PhD student. And I think just by including just even the slightest change of that dynamic, like the questions that we were able to ask, the research that we were able to kind of foster. So one of our faculty mentors is also in environmental studies, and that's really been very interesting about what type of research he's focused on and how that can contribute to the alt protein industry and just like the conversion of animal agriculture to alternative proteins. So I think my thinking has broadened in terms of the people that we need. And I kind of mentioned that before, but I think the other thing that has been really eye-opening and amazing to me is that how accessible and approachable people are, like people that are what I would consider to be famous are people that will just come to these webinars. And I think many of us have experienced a similar thing of like, we've been able to have events with top researchers in the field and CEOs and CTOs. And everybody like will reply to your email and, try to figure out a good time that works for you. And that has just been really eye-opening and has just been it has made me really excited about transitioning into these in the industry and actually engaging with these people. So I think for people that are, getting into this industry in the beginning, reach out to people on LinkedIn, like tweet at them, like people will respond. And that's been really, really encouraging and was very surprising to us.
Definitely want to echo that. Just completely agree. Yeah.
Thanks, Nick and Varsha. Yeah, I think when people hear about the alt protein project for the first time, they sometimes, have this thought like, how could students make all this happen? I think a lot of us had the experience of having companies and, various kinds of organizations reach out at the beginning of the alt protein project. And they were really confused that these were run by student leaders. And so I think just to make the alt protein project seem like more accessible to students who might be here in the audience, I'm curious if you all can reflect on the most meaningful things you think students can do to ensure that alt proteins are successful, from within the academic ecosystem. Nick, you're welcome to kick us off. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts as well.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the really cool things about this space, and there are many, is that there is opportunity for really, really outsized impact as a student in this field, because like we've touched on here, there's so much that needs to be done. And just from, scanning those presentations that we had, we're working on things like course development and academic planning in terms of like pathways for an official or unofficial certificate or focus, getting additional research support, having industry speakers to boost awareness, coming in with like effective altruism perspectives to, boost this field. And I think, just all of those things have so much potential for impact, and, any student can get involved with those.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick. Other reflections, Aditya?
Yeah, so I'd like to add to that. So I think there's really 2 sides to the whole alt protein movement, right? There's the sort of techno-economic side, which is what we usually spend most of our time focusing on, so, of creating startups and education and companies and all of this stuff. But then there's also the social change side, because you aren't going to create any, even if you do create all of these products, if no one ends up buying them at the end of the day, it's all moot. And I think, students can play a really pivotal role there because they're generally, more open to new technologies and trying new foods and things like that. And if anyone in a family is going to, start the family on eating plant-based or eating cultured meat, hopefully someday, it's probably going to be the one who went to college and came back and brought the idea back with them. So I think sort of, simultaneously creating this space for students to sort of learn more about social change and how social change happens and how to make it happen effectively. Nick mentioned effective altruism. I think that's a really powerful framework of that kind. And then, just giving them the tools to convince society at large that, hey, this is important and maybe we should try eating one of these products.
Yeah, that's really powerful, Aditya. This idea that students are not just future scientists and engineers and field builders, but they're also future consumers. And so what we're also doing here is building capacity and socializing the idea that alternative proteins is not that weird. It's actually really extraordinary. And yeah, I really appreciate those reflections. All right, we are rubbing up against our last few moments together here. This flew by so quickly. But the very last question I would love to ask this group is, we've had this year together and hopefully we'll have many years to come. What is your big dream for your school's chapter of the Alt Protein Project? How would you like to see it evolve, over the next 5 years or so? Lisa, would you like to start us off here?
Yes, of course, thanks. So if I'm allowed to dream, I would say that the biggest thing I could imagine, and I would be very proud to be part of it, is that in 5 years we would have a department of alt protein, just as was built at the TU Munich, that we would have one department like this for the TU Berlin, and that all the students who would like to get involved could just study it directly and have PhD opportunities. That would be my major dream.
Thanks, Lisa. We love dreams here. Yeah, Varsha, hop in.
I can go next. Yeah, I think I would really echo of having kind of a robust research platform, or having people or graduate students that would come to CU to research alternative proteins and have that be one of our strengths. And I also think that within the larger Boulder community, we have a lot of entrepreneurship, a lot of biotech that's moving here. And I would really love to see more companies kind of spin out of CU or come here and have a branch in Boulder, because I think we have a community and kind of an ethos, a space that would really work for this industry. So that's my hope.
Yeah, I would personally really love for Wageningen's reputation in cell ag to match its reputation, current reputation in plant-based and just in food and agriculture in general. I want a lot of the most exciting research being done here. I want a lot of the most exciting startups being founded by Wageningen students. And I want there to be a really robust environment for students to make all of this possible, both in research and education, and also in community building. Yeah.
Just to wrap it up, I'll build on what everyone said. I think I have a lot of the same visions of some sort of focus, whether it's a department or a designated emphasis is something that we have at UC Davis, or something that can allow these multidisciplinary people to come and really study alternative proteins. And so right now we have the Cultivated Meat Consortium, and so we have a rapidly growing ecosystem in the cultivated meat space, but we don't have plant-based and fermented platforms that are kind of growing as rapidly. So kind of in reverse of what Aditya was saying, I would like to see maybe our reputation in those areas increase. But already, UC Davis has, I counted at one point, and we've got about 50 plus alums in the cultivated meat space. And I haven't done the count for plant-based or fermented, but I'm sure it's much higher. So I'd love to see, some feedback from those people so that we can really build something lasting here.
All right. Thank you all so much for your reflections. I'm feeling so inspired now hearing about where you hope your projects to be in the next 5 years. That brings this session to a close. I want to just give a huge thank you to all of our passionate and brilliant student groups, our speakers and panelists that have tuned in here from all around the world and made all of this possible. You are all literally changing the world and blazing the trail for those that follow in your footsteps. So thank you so much for all of the extraordinary work you do. To our audience members, be sure to check out the resources we have for students and movement builders linked below this session. It's been a real joy to moderate this session today. I will see everyone back on the main stage in just a few minutes to wrap up day 2. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.